because there was a lot of grumblings that this Pope was much too liberal. And it made me laugh because, if Jesus came back, if you believed in him in the first place, but if he came back, they'd just kill him all over again. I mean, the idea that this Pope is leaning too liberal when he's talking about, stopping the bombing of children, right? When he's talking about not being a hypocrite with your compassion towards people, when he's talking about embracing the other, embracing refugees, accepting, allowing gay people to accept communion, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but in the Catholic Church is a really big deal. These are all the teachings of Jesus in the sense of embracing the stranger, embracing the other, and the idea that they want to move back to the ideological center is so interesting to me because it really seems to be mirroring what's happening politically around the world, where we're freaking out about, these progressives trying to wreck everything with their DEI. So we got to move everybody back to the center with these traditional values. But really their values are so far right that they don't understand that the center is literally just about compassion. It has nothing to do with ideology beyond that. And I just find that fascinating that they can't see the forest through the trees, so to speak.
And it blows my mind too, as something they claim to be important in their lives. Like it's just like it's not even close anymore. Like I guess there was a point where you could have squinted and said, oh, like, both parties, they're not quite following the teachings of Christ. But like even then, the things that they'll stand up for on the basis of their religion are very specific. They'll say, yeah, we shouldn't have marriage between, two men because that would be against the teachings of God. But then when they say, oh, I don't know, 9/11, what should we do? We should retaliate. What would Jesus tell you to do, bro? Like, what would he would say? Turn the other cheek. He was pretty clear about that one. What about the immigrants? What should we do with them? What did Jesus say? Do unto others as you would do unto him. Would you deport Jesus Christ? No, the fuck you wouldn't. So why are you deporting anyone else? It's the most basic, fundamental teachings. Again, as I've said, I think Jesus is a pretty cool philosopher. I think if you follow the teachings of Jesus Christ in a non-religious way, you're going to live to be a pretty morally upstanding person. But yeah, it's.
I'd still like to know where he was for all those years in the desert before we make any final judgments.
I mean, again, like there's some stuff in there that doesn't quite make sense now. You take away the magic shit and the philosophy, it's not bad.
Nah, I don't.
I'm teasing. I get it, John. I get it.
I don't have nearly as high an opinion of Jesus as John does.
Like, it is one of the biggest ways TJ and I differ. I do like Jesus. He's a cool bro to me.
As far as a first century, rabbi in the Middle East, sure, I guess it's all right. But I mean, I'll pick any random philosopher from the 20th century over Jesus anytime. Wait, what do you got there? I mean, it's real basic shit. Hey, do unto others. I'm the first person to think of that. I am very important because I said the golden rule that people hadn't thought of thousands of years before. By the way, if you don't follow this rule, you will burn in agony for eternity. Now, I don't know.
It's marketing, TJ. It's all about that marketing.
I don't know. Like, I will say, I do appreciate Jesus's hatred of rich people. That I'm on board with.
He was very anti-capitalism.
Jesus never said one kind word about rich people. His entire ministry. Props for that. Fewer props for saying, cut off your hand if you're going to sin with it. No, I don't think I will. I think I'll keep sinning with this hand and the other one for the rest of my life, Jesus.
You're ambidextrous in that way. That's impressive. Good for you.
That's right. Yeah. I didn't say which sin I was talking about. Now, Jesus Christ. Holy shit. That was wow. That was good. But no, I've lost track. Oh, what do you got there?
I just said, John, you suggest people are ideologically consistent. I just want to reiterate this point. People are not ideologically consistent at all, ever. You can look at anyone and you'll find inconsistencies in their logic because we're all fallible human beings. Some people way more than others. However, when you devote your life to this shit, like when you're a priest, when you're a preacher of scripture, I don't understand how you can arrive at any other conclusion than, what Trump is doing is horrific according to the teachings of Christ. And literally any other politician in the country would be better than him. Well, maybe not literally right now, but literally any other politician in the last 20 years would be better than him. Like it is kind of insane that people who dedicate their life to this ideology don't apply it thoroughly. It blows my mind.
That comment about ideological inconsistency, that's a really good one, because he's right. We all do have inconsistent beliefs that don't necessarily coincide with logic. I'd like to know if you guys hold any like that, because I have some, and I try to recognize it and act accordingly. For example, I am against the death penalty. I like all the data shows me that the death penalty doesn't work. But if you ask me how I felt about the death penalty, hell yeah. If you ask me how I felt about it, yeah, it makes perfect sense to me that if you take someone's life, you have forfeited yours. That seems just in my mind. Now, I don't support it because I know it doesn't solve the problem. I know that, we execute a certain percentage of innocent people. I got it. But if you're asking me how I feel about it, yeah, I think it's great, but I'd never vote for it. So do you guys hold any like that? Putting you on the spot here for a subject you didn't sign up to talk about, but just out of curiosity.
No, I'm trying to think, because I have taken a lot of time especially in my 20s, to figure out, like, what is my philosophy on life? What are the things that I try to aspire to, right? And I've always kind of settled on the, not the harm none philosophy, but harm less, like harm reduction philosophy of do as little harm as possible. I think that's why I became a vegan. I think that's why I've tried to do just certain things. Nothing's perfect, right? But just certain things. So I've tried to reduce harm. But I think where I get tripped up a lot is capitalism, because I am actually, the older I get, becoming less and less interested in this system and see more and more harm that it's doing. And then I find myself every day trying to figure out ways to make money so I can retire early enough in my life so I can actually enjoy my life. And so I do feel a lot of confliction around, hating this system that is so exploitive and so wasteful and harms so many, and also not just participating in it, but being ambitious within it. And I think that sometimes is where I'm like, I don't know how to sit with this. And so I just sit with it because, like you said, people are inconsistent, but also we're not going to have everything figured out in all aspects of our life. But I think it's trying to find ways to reduce harm in the spaces that we exist in. But that's a challenge.
Yeah.
I think that I think that you just brought veganism and stuff. Like TJ and I discussed not too long ago. It might have been on Thursday or last Tuesday. That we both 100% agree with the vegans. They are morally correct all the way.
I wasn't trying to bring that up, by the way, as any other thing than just
no.
But
we're both going to eat meat, and either way, we're both going to do it. And you know what? I know that I can spend the extra money to get the more ethically sourced meat, which I sometimes do, but not all the time. And I recognize that is a moral inconsistency. And I genuinely am valuing my money over the ethical treatment of these animals. Yeah. I do that. I don't think I'm a good person for it. But I think that at the other side of that coin, which can be very, very abused, but is still true, is that there's only so much you can do. Sometimes you gotta put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on the guy next to you. Anyone who tries to live their entire life through a strict moral code is more likely than not to fail and contribute less to society and the greater good anyway. And that's not a hard rule. It takes constant awareness and trying to figure out how far you can push yourself, which is difficult to do, which is why I think a lot of people prefer religious moralities where there's hard rules and easy yeses, no's. But that is how, in my opinion, how you be a moral person. You recognize
Yeah.
that you are fallible. You
Yeah.
recognize that there's going to be sacrifices you need to make in your own moral ideology in order to just get through the day in a fucked up system. It's why I love. Have you ever seen The Good Place?
Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's one of my
Yeah.
all-time favorites.
One of my all-time
Yeah,
favorite
it's
shows.
so
And
good.
honestly, a
I
better.
was a philosophy major, so I like really resonated with that show.
Yeah.
I was like, how are they making this work? And yet here we are.
It's so good. It tells us real truth. You can't
Yes.
be 100% moral
No.
in our society. You
No.
cannot do it. It is
Well,
impossible. Besides maybe just killing yourself. Like that's probably the easiest way to not do anything immoral.
well, exactly. And I think that I think to your point, though, listening to both of you talking about veganism, not to bring it into focus, but it's a good example of, once again, a harm reduction model versus a harm none, because I think if we try to do a harm none, we're going to fail every day.
Yep.
But I think harm reduction is something we can all do. And it's like, do a meatless Monday, just do it one day a week. And you're now doing something for the planet, right? And for your body and for the animals. So there are ways of incorporating not just that, but many other things that you would consider, like, you know, taking public transportation once a week instead of using your car. Like, I think there's all these little things, but I think what frustrates me most is when we talk in that context, it goes back to this capitalist society of everything falls on the individual. And that's bullshit. And the reality is it's these systems that are much, 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 much bigger than us. Like, you know, all of the three of us could eat plants for the rest of our lives. It's not going to make a dent in carbon emissions. What's going to do that is ending the military industrial complex, right? Stop bombing other countries, like, you know, change the whole system of energy. That's what we have to do. And we are not able to do that. So I think sometimes it's sort of like when we found out that recycling actually didn't do shit and most of it wasn't being recycled.
Yep.
My poor husband every week was bringing out a bag of, you know, our cans because we just had to be good people. And now we're like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And I'm just throwing, you know, cans in now because it's just, there is a little bit of that feeling of nihilism. And so sometimes I think the harm reduction also just helps you feel better, which in and of itself is a way to be self-compassionate, which then allows you to be more compassionate towards other people. Because I do think compassion is the key ingredient to all of this. And that's what's really lacking in our government right now. And that's what really is scaring me, because we're normalizing the nastiest among us. And that is what I'm concerned about.
I think that it's lacking. It's actively rooted out. Like the government is now run by hostility. It is run. It is they just want to hurt people. That's their stated mission. It's quite insane.
Like garnishing wages for people that have student loans. Like, are you kidding me?
Wow. Yeah. That's like, I think that's a great point about how this focus on the individual has kind of led to the society we have today. I saw someone talking about, if you are, I don't know, say you're 28 years or 25 years old or whatever, and you didn't start paying attention to politics until recently, you would think politics was always like this. That, you know, this just deep performative sociopathy that you know drives a lot of people and their politics, which is why Trump is so appealing to them. Because I think a lot of folks have given up on the idea that life is ever going to get significantly better for them. I think a lot of people have given up on that. How many people realistically think that by the time they're 65 they could actually retire? How many people think that? It's the number grows smaller and smaller every day. Also, I wanted to mention John. I do like John's statement of that, how, you know, he would be a vegan and it is the moral choice, but it's just so hard, folks. It's so difficult. Like, I can't do, you know, I know the morality.
I've been 15 years now. I'm just saying. Before
John is not as tough made as tough as stuff as you are, Natalie.
I'm sending you both recipes. Granted, get ready.
Granted, that's my position too. But John said it, so it's funny hearing it out loud. But it's also like, because we do it every day. We do it all the time. And you're right. There is no perfect morality you can live. You have to make some sort of sacrifices, and sacrifice is the wrong word because we're the ones benefiting. For example, choice. If you eat chocolate at any time, you were benefiting from slave labor, guaranteed, 100%. Like, none of the chocolate you eat a chocolate bar would cost $8 if it was charged what it was actually worth. All your electronics should cost 4 times more. Your
Yep.
clothes should cost more. Like, there's no way you could actually function in this society and survive if you tried to live more. Now, it doesn't make these actions okay, but acknowledging that is important. That's the part that
Yes.
really gets me, is that people will oftentimes, like conservatives, or not just conservatives, a lot of people, they'll pretend that they don't have racist or misogynistic thoughts or inclinations or suspicions. It's like, yeah, if you just admitted it, you'd be fine. Just recognize reality there. Also, you mentioned The Good Place. My favorite part about The Good Place was the name of the stores in The Good Place. They always had really clever names, and the best one by a country mile was Biscotti Pippin. Obviously, amazing, just absolutely amazing that they had right there. And with energy, this is like, well, not energy, but conservation with recycling and all that. Though, you ever see someone stumble on the correct position for the wrong reason? Republicans do this with paper straws. Yes, paper straws are annoying. They're obnoxious. I hate them and everything. And also miss the point. Miss the point. They try to put the onus on you, the individual.
That's right.
Hey, make your life a little bit, more annoying to pretend you're saving the planet so corporations don't actually have to. And John, I think I know your opinion on this, but Natalie, what's your? Well, actually, you guys are both in Pennsylvania, so nuclear energy. I don't know. I am all in favor of it. I think that using magic rocks to make water boil is a great idea. I don't know why it's not more common, but Natalie, what are your thoughts on that?
I interviewed a couple of people around this whole thing with nuclear energy, and once again, I'm not opposed to it. What I'm opposed to is who's going to benefit from it, who's going to claim ownership to it, and is it actually going to benefit the masses, or how is it going to be used? And what frustrates me with some of these sort of newer forms of technology and energy, not that nuclear is, but newer in the sense that they're debating on whether to use it, is I interviewed this guy from, I think it was called New Sun Rising, I think, but it was all about like solar panels. And he was saying in Pennsylvania, people would think like we don't get enough sun to be able to harness the energy of the sun for people's homes. Mm-hmm. And he said that's totally false. And what he's been doing is trying to work with community leaders and foundations to get grants to give them to people in Section 8 housing and in low-income housing, in rundown neighborhoods that in Pittsburgh that nobody cares about, and get them completely energy independent. And there's been all of this pushback. And that really pisses me off because he's talking about a energy revolution where you and the people on your block would go in together on panels, and it would be enough not only to just do your whole block for a year, but you'd be able to store it and sell it to companies, and then they could use it. So your community would make revenue, not as a tax, but as an actual like revenue stream. And you could use it to upgrade your community in different ways. And I was like, why aren't we doing this everywhere? Mm-hmm. And why are you getting so much pushback from this in Pennsylvania? And then I thought, well, duh, Natalie, we're like the Saudi Arabia of the United States when it comes to energy, like production. I mean, the fracking that goes on here is, talk about immoral. It's disgusting. The level of oil and, the level of fracking that we're doing and what's being shipped out of this state, it has nothing to do with making our communities better. They've left communities in shambles after these fracking spaces have basically usurped up everything that they could get out of it and have moved on. We've got one of the worst cases of rates of childhood cancers in the country right here in my own backyard. And nothing changes because we're still insisting on these same idiots running things when it comes to our energy production. And so when I hear nuclear energy, I want to get excited, but I also have a deep cynicism about it because we were told to get excited about fracking. We were told it was safe, 20 years ago. We were told all these things. Oh, it's going to lower your gas prices. We have not benefited at all in this state. All we've done is harm our water, our air, and our children's health and ourselves. And now we're sitting across looking at this new horizon of energy production. And I keep thinking to myself about that interview I did with that guy. And I'm like, how do we get solar energy in every low-income community so that they can become more self-sufficient and not have to pay any utility bill. And I think that's what really scares a lot of the utility companies, because then you wouldn't need them anymore. And so there's so many powers that be when we talk about systems that really need to be uprooted. And that's going to take a real collective change in consciousness. And I don't know when that is going to happen. So I know that's not really answering your question, but that's how I kind of feel about where we're headed with nuclear. I'm worried it's going to go the same direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think with nuclear, it's just build as much as humanly possible and figure out the rest later, because it is by far the safest form of energy that we have. One of the most cost-effective forms of energy that we have, the cleanest form of energy that we have, and we should just build as much of it as we can. And it really upsets me when I see climate conscious people pretend to be against it, because what are you even in this for? I'm just like, you must be getting paid right now to say these things, because all of the science indicates, nuclear is the safest form of energy that we have. It's insane. But to speak more broadly to what you're saying, Natalie, energy is, and I've never actually said this on this show because we don't get too much into this often, but like, to me,
don't worry, it's just us.
Yeah, no, we're leaning in. Let's go.
Oh no, well, it's nothing like scandalous or anything, because I haven't talked about this particular thing on this show. But I feel like energy is the dividing line between when we can be stop being capitalist. Because as long as energy is a finite resource, communism will never work. Like in order for a true, fully developed form of communism to work, you need to have no more resource scarcity. And that just can't happen as long as energy is scarce. And the more we can do to just push more energy, the faster everything shores up. And you're right. There's a reason why entrenched energy companies are against things like solar panel communities. Solar has made such gains and strides in my lifetime. The bell curve, it's exponential curve in the amount of energy that we're able to generate per solar panel. And we are very quickly, within all of our lifetimes, assuming we don't die, assuming we don't meet with JD Vance, right? That we are going to have enough solar energy to power everything in the country very easily. And if we made a collective effort to get there immediately, we could have it in the next 20 years. If we made that effort, if the people that Natalie were mentioning weren't holding us back from doing so. We have also programs like ITER that are studying nuclear fusion, which if we can get nuclear fusion right, which also that one's a little scary because we could just all die. But like, if we can get that right, that's infinite energy, just infinite energy. We will never run out of it.